Alpha King froze, seeing his rejected mate dance for another. The pack knew what was coming. The frost hung thick over the kingdom of Arendor, settling like a silver cloak over stone towers. In the heart of this frozen land stood the palace of the Alpha King, KL, whose presence alone could bend the wind and quiet the fiercest storm. The pack whispered of him in awe and fear, their loyalty cemented by generations of legends. Yet tonight, beneath the glow of the twin moons, even Kale felt a chill that no fire could chase away. He stood at the edge of the moonlight festival, the crowd a blur of colors and shadows, his eyes fixed on her. Lyra, his mate, danced at the center of the courtyard, the flicker of torchlight tracing every graceful movement. Her hair shimmered like melted silver, her arms swaying with a rhythm that drew eyes, hearts, and attention. But the look in her eyes was not for Kale. It was for another. Kale's chest tightened as the world seemed to slow. Every beat of the drum, every whisper of laughter, and every flicker of torchlight focused his mind only on her. Lyra had always been his destined mate, chosen by prophecy and bound by the ancient rites of the pack. He had watched over her, protected her, shaped her place in the pack since they were children. Yet now she spun and twirled, not for him but for Darien, a rival alpha whose arrogance had always grated against Kale's sense of order. The pack sensed it too. Wolves and warriors alike whispered among themselves, eyes darting between Kale and Lyra. They knew that tonight would shatter more than celebration. It would shatter hearts. Lyra's dance ended in a final bowing flourish, her gaze meeting Darien's with unspoken words. A cheer rose from the crowd, yet in Kale's ears it sounded hollow, a hollow echo in a hall of ice. He could not move. His hands, strong and steady at all other times, trembled slightly. The world had frozen in that single moment of betrayal. Kale remembered the days when Lyra's laughter had been only for him. They had raced through the snow-covered forests, leapt across frozen streams, and shared secrets whispered beneath the stars. Those days felt distant now, like fragments of a dream slipping through fingers that refused to hold them. Best, and yet he could not deny the fire in her movements. Even as she rejected him, she radiated strength and beauty, as if mocking the very chains of destiny that had bound them. Pride, sharp and bitter, rose in Kale's chest. He wanted to claim her, to demand her loyalty, yet a deeper, quieter ache whispered that something more fragile, more human still remained. He pushed through the crowd, his cloak billowing behind him like a shadow in motion. The torches flickered, casting elongated shapes that twisted and danced like spirits in the night. Darien noticed him coming and straightened, the smirk on his face, confident, predatory. He believed he had won. But Kale's gaze was cold, sharp as ice, and the air itself seemed to bend to his will. Lyra's eyes found him then, a flicker of fear and guilt hidden beneath defiance. She had expected him to be angry, perhaps violent, but not frozen in the weight of hurt and disbelief. The distance between them was filled with unspoken words, broken promises, and the ghosts of shared memories. "You!" Kale's voice broke the silence, low and controlled, yet heavy with the power that had kept the pack in awe for decades. "Why?" Parted, words forming but refusing to leave her throat. She could not explain, not fully, not when even her heart seemed divided. She began, but the sound was drowned in the soft whisper of the wind, which carried a chill from the mountains beyond. Darien stepped closer, arrogance rolling off him like a tide. "It seems your mate has chosen," he said, his voice taunting. "Perhaps even the Alpha King can lose what he cannot hold." Kale's gaze snapped to him, sharp as the edge of a blade. The ground beneath their feet seemed to harden, frost creeping like veins across the stone. "Do not speak her name," Kale said, his voice calm but every syllable dripped with danger. She is mine by law, by bond, by fate. And yet, I feel you testing more than my patience, Darian. Be careful. The crowd had grown silent, sensing the tension thick as ice. Wolves in the shadows growled softly, an instinctive warning, as if they could feel the storm brewing in their alpha's heart. Kale's control was legendary, but even the strongest ice can crack. Lyra stepped forward, hands trembling, yet her chin was lifted. She wanted to speak, to explain that her choice was not betrayal, not entirely. It was fear, responsibility, and her own desire to protect the pack, but the words caught in her throat. The moment of truth hung between them, fragile and brilliant, like the first frost of winter on untouched leaves. Kale's eyes softened for a heartbeat. The pack had always feared him for his strength, his dominance, his absolute authority. But they had not seen him like this before, broken in spirit, yet unbroken in power. He wanted to roar, to unleash centuries of anger, yet another part of him, smaller and warmer, whispered that this was the test of his heart. Could he bend without breaking? Could he endure the betrayal without losing himself? Lyra's gaze faltered, and Kale noticed the tiny quiver of her fingers. He remembered the night when she had been frightened of shadows, and he had held her hand until her fear melted away. That memory was a dagger now, cutting him with what could have been. Darian laughed softly, a cruel, effortless sound. You look uncertain, Kale. Perhaps you are not as certain of your mate as you believed. Perhaps even the Alpha King can be denied. Kale's jaw tightened. His hand flexed, and the frost at his feet deepened, spiraling like dark smoke curling from the earth. But he did not strike. Not yet. There was a choice to make: domination, or something harder: patience and understanding. Something that even kings often found impossible. Lyra's heart ached with the weight of centuries of expectation. She had always loved Kale, but she had also feared his wrath. She had danced for Darian not out of desire alone, but because she thought it would shield the pack from a political storm she could not yet comprehend. But as Kale approached, every instinct in her body told her that her plan had failed. The space between them closed, and the wind seemed to hold its breath. Kale's eyes glowed faintly, the ancient power of his alpha blood simmering beneath the surface. Lyra knew the stories of what he could do, the storms he could summon, the pack he could command with a whisper. Yet the sight of him now, so close, so painfully human in his hurt, unmade the tales of legend in her mind. Lyra, Kale said again, softer now, a tone that carried both command and longing.
You cannot hide what is true. The bond we share.
It cannot be denied, even by fear, even by choice. Lyra wanted to speak, to tell him the truth, but the words tangled in her chest. She could not explain that her actions had been for the pack, that she had feared losing herself under the weight of their destinies. She could only stand there trembling as the Alpha King of Arindor, her mate, approached, unstoppable and inevitable. The pack watched in silence. Even the oldest warriors, who had seen centuries of battles and betrayals, felt the tension so thick it pressed against their chests. This was not just a dispute between two hearts. It was a collision of fates, a storm that could change the kingdom itself. The space between them seemed alive, charged with the energy of their shared past and uncertain future. His breath formed a mist in the cold night, and for a moment he allowed himself to imagine her hand in his. Just a heartbeat of hope. But then, a shadow moved behind him. A faint, spectral wolf, glowing with icy light, prowled near the edge of the courtyard. It was a messenger, one of the ancient spirits of the pack, appearing only in moments of deep omen. The wolf's gaze locked with Kael's, warning of a curse that lingered at the edges of destiny, a curse that only the bond of true mates could undo. Lyra noticed it too, a shiver running down her spine. She realized that their story was no longer just about choice or rejection. It was about survival, about fate, and about a love tested by forces older than both of them. Kael's eyes flickered from the wolf to her, and in that moment, the frozen mask of his pride cracked just enough to reveal the storm within. Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to run, to hide, to undo what had been set into motion. But she could not. Something in her chest demanded that she stay, and so the night held them there, suspended in tension and longing, the moonlight festival forgotten around them. The pack knew what was coming. Even the wind seemed to whisper it. The Alpha King's heart, once frozen, was about to break, and what happened next would shape the fate of the kingdom forever. Kael's voice, low and steady, finally broke the silence.
Lyra, this night changes everything. Choose wisely, for the frost will not wait, and neither will I.
The words hung like icicles, sharp and impossible to ignore. Lyra's hands twitched toward him, almost touching, almost reaching the warmth that could thaw the deepest ice in his heart. And then a sudden howl split the night, a spectral sound that rose from the dark forest beyond the palace walls. The wolf omens were never idle, and both Kael and Lyra knew. Whatever began tonight, it would not end without pain, truth, and transformation. The crowd had scattered, but the night had only begun. The palace gardens lay under a thick sheet of frost, silver leaves trembling in the pale moonlight. The torches flickered along stone paths, casting shadows that danced like restless spirits. Kael moved through them with the quiet power of a storm approaching, every step deliberate, every breath measured. The pack had scattered after the festival, leaving only the whispers of the wind and the soft crunch of snow underfoot. Tonight, the world belonged to him, and Lyra. Lyra waited near the frozen fountain, her reflection fractured in the icy water. Her hands were clasped together, but her pulse betrayed her calm. She had never seen Kael like this before, not angry, not furious, not the alpha who could command storms with a single word, but wounded, trembling beneath the weight of pride and heartbreak. Kael stopped a few steps away, his eyes as pale and piercing as the moons above, fixed on her. He said nothing at first, letting the silence stretch between them like a knife. Lyra felt it pressing against her chest, each heartbeat louder than the last. "You danced!" Kael said finally, his voice quiet but sharp enough to make the frost shiver. Them. For him, not me. Lyra's lips parted, but no sound came. She had rehearsed words for days, words that would explain, excuse, or soften her actions, but none of them felt enough. Kael, it's not what? Kael interrupted, his voice rising, though still contained. Not betrayal. Not rejection. The wind whistled around them, carrying the echo of his power. Do you even understand what you've done? I understand more than you think, she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound steady. I danced for him to protect the pack, to prevent a war that could destroy everything we've built. It was never about choice, not fully. Despair. I never wanted to hurt you. Kael's expression hardened, the wound in his pride turning into flames beneath his icy exterior. You made your choice in the open. You humiliated me. Humiliated us.
I didn't mean to! Lyra's words spilled out in desperation.
I never wanted to! Kale held up a hand, and the wind stilled. The snow around them bent toward him as if drawn to the magnet of his fury and heartbreak. You will speak when I allow it, he said, low and commanding, yet beneath the authority a tremor betrayed his struggle. His power was immense, legendary, but tonight it was tempered by something older, something human. Love. Lyra's gaze dropped to the frozen ground. She remembered when they were children, when Kale had promised to protect her from everything in the world. He had kept that promise, yet now she feared that protection had hardened into something she could not reach. Darian's laughter from earlier echoed in her mind. That cruel, triumphant sound made her stomach twist. He had watched her dance with a predatory smile, confident that Kale could not touch her heart. But Kale could touch her heart. He always had. And now, standing before her, he was both terrifying and achingly human, a paradox of power and vulnerability. Bess.
You think I will let you stand there and explain? Kale's voice was ice and fire combined. Do you believe the pack will forgive this?
That I will forgive this. I don't ask for forgiveness, Lyra said, lifting her eyes to meet his. I only ask. Understand that I tried to protect everything we've built. I am still yours, Kale. I never left your side. Not truly. Kael's breath came slowly, the wind around him bending to the rhythm of his anger and longing. Still mine, he echoed. Do you know how it feels to watch the one you love, your mate, dance for another? To feel your own heart breaking before your eyes? Lyra stepped forward, the snow crunching softly beneath her boots. I can feel it too, she whispered. Every moment I danced, I felt your eyes. I felt the storm in your heart. And it broke me too, Kale. I never wanted this. Cal's gaze softened, just for a heartbeat. He remembered her laughter under the stars, the way her hand had fit perfectly in his, the shared moments of innocence before fate had weighed upon them. That softness, though brief, only made the fire in his chest grow hotter. He wanted her to understand, to feel the weight of what they had shared, to realize that his fury was not only about pride, it was about love. A sudden gust of wind howled through the garden, carrying a chill that was not natural. The torches flared, their flames twisting unnaturally. Kale tensed, sensing the presence of something otherworldly. He had felt it earlier during the festival. A warning, a ripple in the threads of fate. Now it was here, tangible, moving between the frost and shadows. Bran. Lyra followed his gaze and gasped. At the edge of the garden a spectral figure emerged, translucent and glowing faintly like moonlight on snow. Bait. A wolf, ancient and ethereal, prowled silently, its eyes fixed on them. It was a messenger, a sign of omens older than the pack itself. The Alpha of Arendor had faced many dangers, but few as weighty as the spirits that now observed him. The omen has come, Kale said, voice low, breaths. The spirits know our hearts are in conflict. The bond is tested. The curse waits.
If we fail, it will take more than pride or power to save the pack.
Lyra shivered. A curse, she whispered. Kael, what does it mean? It means, Kael said slowly, his voice trembling with restrained power, that our bond is more than destiny, more than choice. It is a trial, operation. If we falter, if one of us turns away from the other in fear or doubt, the consequences will touch every soul in the kingdom. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to reach out to take his hand to prove that her bond was true, but something inside her hesitated. The fear that her actions had already set events into motion that could not be undone. Cale stepped closer, and the frost beneath his feet deepened, spiraling like black smoke curling in the night. The pack's whispers carried on the wind seemed to warn her. Do not break the Alpha's heart, but the wind also carried the echo of her own choice. She had acted for love, for protection, for the pack, and yet it had hurt him. I could punish you, Cale said softly, almost mournfully. I could claim what is mine with force, with magic, with power beyond imagining. But, he paused, the words faltering on his tongue. But I will not. Not yet. Because, even in betrayal, I see truth. Even in fear, I see love. But, and if I destroy you now, I destroy the bond that could save us all. She had never seen him like this. Not cruel, not merciless, not the unshakable Alpha who commanded storms, but human. So achingly human. And in that moment she realized that love was not a gift. It was a responsibility, a choice made every day in the face of fear, pride, and danger. Cale's gaze softened, but his power simmered beneath the surface, ready to erupt at a moment's notice. He said. The pack watches. They see what is happening here. The bonds that hold us together are fraying, and if we fail this night, we fail them all. Best.
Lyra took a cautious step forward. Then let me prove it.
Let me show you that I am still yours, Cale. That I have always been yours, even in my fear, even in my mistakes. Pay. Cale's eyes narrowed, studying her, searching for lies, searching for weakness. He wanted to believe her, but the pain of the festival, of seeing her dance for another, lingered like ice in his chest. His heart was torn between fury and hope, between dominance and the delicate art of forgiveness. A low growl broke the tense silence. The spectral wolf had moved closer, its eyes locked on Cale's, warning of the curse that had begun to stir. Its howl was not loud, but it echoed through the gardens like a bell tolling the start of a storm. Cale clenched his fists, the frost swirling around him. The night is not over, he said, voice steady despite the turmoil within.
And neither is the test.
By Lyra, the bond we share will be tested in ways you cannot yet imagine. And he paused, searching for words that could carry the weight of both threat and hope. I will not fail. Lyra's hand rose, trembling, almost touching his arm. The moment hung between them, fragile and bright like the first frost of winter sunlight. Their hearts beat in unison, yet the world around them threatened to tear them apart. And then, from the shadows of the forest, came another howl, esque, darker, deeper, more commanding than the spectral wolf. Something had stirred, something ancient, dangerous and watching. Kayal's eyes flicked toward the trees, and he saw movement, shapes like the wind itself taking form, circling them, observing, waiting. Lyra gasped. Bay. She had thought tonight's trials were over, but the forest whispered of more. Challenges, choices, and sacrifices yet to come. Cale turned his gaze back to her, determination hardening in his features. Beck. Whatever comes, he said quietly, we face it together. But understand this, the night is far from over, and the storm we have begun cannot be undone. The wind carried his words across the frozen gardens, and the pack, watching from the shadows, knew. The Alpha King and his mate were on the edge of a battle not just of hearts, but of fate itself. Lyra's breath caught Bet. She took another step forward, almost closing the distance, almost reaching him. But before her hand could touch his, the spectral wolf howled again. A warning, a herald of darkness yet to come. The frost deepened. The torches flickered. And the night waited, holding its breath, as the fire beneath the frost began to rise. Cliffhanger. Cale and Lyra stand on the edge of confrontation, hearts exposed, when the spectral wolf howls a warning of an even greater darkness stirring in the forest. Their bond is being tested, and the true danger the forest beyond the palace walls was alive in a way that made the hair on Cale's neck stand on end. The trees were tall and skeletal, their branches clawing at the pale sky, and frost clung to every leaf as if the world itself had frozen in fear. The Moonlight Festival had ended hours ago, but for Cale and Lyra, the night was far from over. Lyra moved carefully beside him, her breath forming clouds in the icy air. She had insisted on following him here, into the depths of the forbidden forest, where the oldest secrets of the pack lay hidden beneath roots twisted by magic older than any living alpha. Cale had not stopped her. His pride and power could have demanded she stay behind, yet something in his heart urged him to let her choose, to see if her loyalty and courage were true. "You should not have come," Cale said quietly, his voice carrying both warning and something softer, almost protective. "This place is dangerous, even for me, Brace. And for you, Lyra," his gaze softened briefly before hardening again. "You are exposed, vulnerable. One wrong step and—" "I am not afraid," Lyra interrupted, though her voice wavered. "I came because I need to understand. I need to face whatever comes between us." "Cale, I never meant to hurt you. I never left your side, not truly."
Please, let me prove it.
Cale studied her, the frost swirling around his feet like smoke.
He could see the truth in her eyes, the fear, the guilt, and the courage that still burned within her. He had always known she was strong, but strength alone did not make loyalty. Trust did, and trust, once broken, was harder to rebuild than the strongest stone walls of the palace. The forest seemed to lean in closer, shadows curling around them like living things. A low growl rolled through the air, and the spectral wolf from the festival appeared again, glowing faintly like moonlight through mist. Its eyes met Cale's, and the alpha nodded slightly. He understood the warning. The curse that had been whispered about was stirring, testing the bond between mates, and the night was far from over. As they walked deeper into the forest, strange visions began to flicker at the edges of their vision. The trees seemed to move, twisting into shapes that resembled faces, faces filled with judgment, sorrow, and warning. Cale's grip on his power tightened. He could feel the pulse of the forest, as if it were alive, feeding on the tension between him and Lyra. Lyra reached for his hand instinctively, and he did not pull away. Their fingers brushed, and a spark of warmth flared through the icy air, a small but significant connection. Even the spirits seemed to pause, watching the delicate thread of trust being woven back between them. But peace was fleeting. From deeper within the forest came a ripple of movement, subtle but deliberate. Cale stiffened, recognizing the presence of Darian. The rival alpha had followed them, his arrogance and cunning a constant shadow, waiting for the moment to strike. Darian's grin was a slash of cruelty in the darkness. "You two really think you can hide from me?" Darian's voice echoed through the trees, light as a feather but sharp as a blade. "The Alpha King, his mate, and a forest full of omens. How poetic."
"But you cannot escape me, Cale. Not now, not ever."
Cale stepped between Lyra and Darian, his form towering, frost swirling around him like a shield. "Leave," he said simply. "This is no place for your games." Darian laughed, and the sound carried easily through the cold, still night.
You call this a game? I call it opportunity.
You are distracted, Kale, weak with pride and hurt.
"And your mate?" He glanced at Lyra, his eyes flicking to her face. She wavers. Fear clouds her choices.
You will lose what is yours if you cannot act now.
But she had feared this confrontation, but not because of Darian's threat. It was the tension in Kale's body, the restrained power simmering beneath his calm exterior, that made her blood run cold. She realized that their bond, fragile and tested, would be their only salvation. Kale's voice was calm, but every syllable carried the weight of centuries of authority. "You will not touch her," he said, the frost spiraling higher, sharp as blades around his feet. "And you will not touch this bond, Darian."
The pack sees. The spirits see.
"And I will not fail them." Darian shrugged, stepping closer, and the shadows seemed to deepen around him. "We shall see," he said softly, almost too softly. "The night is young, Kale." Beck and fate. Fate has a way of testing even the strongest. Suddenly the forest seemed to shiver. A wind like no natural breeze swept through the trees, carrying whispers in a language older than human memory. Lyra clutched Kale's arm instinctively, and he felt the tremor of her fear ripple through him. The spirits were speaking. The curse was stirring. Kale closed his eyes briefly, drawing on the ancient power of his bloodline. Bad. Frost formed in intricate patterns along his arms, swirling like runes in motion. He could feel the threads of fate twisting around them, pulling at Lyra, at himself, at Darian. Every heartbeat mattered. Every choice could either bind them closer or shatter them forever. Lyra spoke softly, almost to herself. "Kale, babe, what does it want from us?" "The bond," Kale said quietly, opening his eyes. They were pale and luminous, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "It tests us. Fear, doubt, betrayal, breath. The curse feeds on these emotions. But if we endure it, breath.
If we trust one another, we can overcome it." Darian's laughter cut through the night again.
Desperatus. Trust? Ha! Bay. Watch as your bond cracks, Kale. She will falter. She will choose safety over loyalty. And when she does, you will burn. Your pride, your love, everything. Kale's hand lifted, frost spiraling upward like a storm ready to strike. "Do not tempt me," he said. "Bay. This forest, these spirits, this night. It will not save you, Darian. Only we can survive what is coming, and only together." The words seemed to ripple through the air, and the forest responded. Shadows twisted into shapes that resembled wolves, eyes glowing like embers, circling them, pressing close but not striking. The spirits were testing them, measuring the strength of their bond, their trust, and their courage. Lyra stepped forward despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Kale, I am yours," she said firmly. "I am not afraid to stand by you. Not here. Not ever. If the curse comes, we face it together." Kale's gaze softened at last, the tension in his body easing slightly. But the forest had more in store. A howl echoed through the trees, deeper, darker, and more commanding than the spectral wolf. Bane. Something ancient stirred, a presence that moved with intent, waiting for the bond to falter, for fear to take hold. Before Kale could react, shadows leapt from the trees. Not wolves, not human, but shapes that flickered between forms, visions born of the curse itself. Lyra gasped as she was suddenly separated from Kale, pulled into one of the visions, the forest around her twisting into impossible shapes. Kale roared, frost spiraling around him like a hurricane. "Lyra!" His voice carried across the void, echoing through the trees and the spirits alike. But he could not reach her. The curse had begun. Inside the vision, Lyra saw possibilities, some terrifying, some beautiful. She saw Kale standing alone, broken by fear and loss. She saw herself choosing Darien, the pack shattered around them. Brand. She saw herself running through the forest, calling for Kale but never finding him. Each vision was a shard of potential futures, a test of love, loyalty, and courage. Lyra felt tears streak her face. She wanted to run, to fight, to reach for Kale, but the visions twisted around her, holding her in a grip of shadow and light. She remembered Kale's words from the festival, his warning and hope intertwined. The bond would be tested. And now she understood fully, Bet. Kale moved through the shadows, the frost burning at his skin, the spirits guiding him, warning him, but also challenging him. He had faced armies, rival alphas, and storms, but nothing like this. The visions clawed at his mind, showing him futures he feared. Futures that could break him. And yet, he did not falter. Every step, every heartbeat, he pushed toward Lyra, toward the bond they shared. Their hands reached for one another, almost touching across the impossible space of shadow and vision. The threads of their bond glowed faintly, fragile yet undeniable. And in that moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if the bond would endure. Duration. And then, a new voice whispered through the shadows. Not Darien, not Kale, not Lyra, but something older. Darker, more commanding presence that had watched the pack for centuries. A presence that promised that the true test was yet to come. Lyra's heart pounded. Kale's grip on his power tightened. Spectral wolves circled them, howling once. A warning that the night's trials were only beginning. The visions swirled, the shadows danced, and the forest waited, patient and eternal. The forest lay silent, yet it was alive in ways that made every step feel like a whisper on the edge of a dream. Kale moved through the twisting trees with purpose, frost curling around his hands and feet like living runes. He had endured visions, shadows, and the cruelty of fate, but nothing had shaken him as much as the separation from Lyra. Every heartbeat echoed in the frozen night, a rhythm of longing and determination.
Lyra's own path through the visions was treacherous.
Shadows of possible futures had shown her losing Kale, the pack breaking and herself swallowed by fear. Each vision had tried to convince her that escape, submission, or betrayal was safer, but deep in her heart she felt the undeniable pull of their bond. Love was not gentle or soft. It was fire beneath frost, unyielding, enduring, and demanding courage. Beside, the forest seemed to sense their determination. The twisted trees bent aside, paths forming where there had been none, guiding them toward one another. The spectral wolf appeared again, glowing with an ethereal light, circling them both, warning and guiding at once. Its howl resonated through the frozen air, a signal that the trial was reaching its climax. Best. Kale came to a clearing where the frost sparkled like shattered glass. There, at the center, Lyra emerged from the shadows of vision and nightmare, her eyes wide but resolute. Bet. She reached for him instinctively, and he mirrored the motion. Their fingers brushed, and the air between them shimmered, as though the bond itself had ignited. "You survived it," Kale said softly, voice trembling with emotion. "You endured the visions, the shadows, the fear. You did not falter." Lyra's breath came in icy clouds. "I could not falter, Kale. Bed. Not when our bond, our pack, everything depends on us. The visions were only warnings, not destiny. I choose you. I choose us." Psst. The frost beneath Kale's feet deepened, swirling in intricate patterns. Power surged around him, the ancient energy of the Alpha bloodline responding to the truth of their words. It was a moment of recognition. The curse could not hold them because their bond was forged not only by fate, but by choice, courage, and love. But victory was not yet complete. Darian stepped from the shadows, his arrogance unbroken. He had followed them through the forest, exploiting their fear and testing the bond.
Bess. "So, the Alpha King and his mate finally reunite?" he sneered. "But this forest, these spirits, this night, it is not yours to command."
"I will not let you." Kael's eyes narrowed, frost spiraling upward like jagged blades. "You are finished, Darian. The pack sees you for what you are. Your schemes, your pride, your cruelty. It will not succeed."
Darian lunged, but before he could reach them, the spectral wolf bounded between them.
Its light flared, blinding and pure, and Darian staggered back, unable to withstand the power of the spirits that had guided the Alpha and his mate. Kale moved forward, frost and magic intertwining, and the forest seemed to rise in defense of its champions. Lyra stepped beside Kale, her courage shining brighter than any weapon. "Leave, Darian. You will harm no one here. Not tonight, not ever. Best pay." Darian's face twisted with rage, but the forest, the spirits, and the bond of Kale and Lyra surrounded him like walls of ice. He had underestimated the strength of the true mate bond. With a final glare, he retreated into the shadows, defeated but alive, leaving a whisper of warning that he would return, but only when they were ready. Kale exhaled, the frost calming around him. Phew! He turned to Lyra, the glow of the spectral wolf fading as it retreated to the edges of the clearing. "We did it," he said, though his voice carried awe rather than triumph. "We endured. Together." Lyra stepped closer, brushing the frost from his cloak. "It was never about power or dominance," she said softly. "Best. It was about trust, about courage, about us." Kyle reached for her hands, and this time there was no hesitation. Their fingers intertwined, warmth flowing into each other, melting the lingering chill in the air. For the first time that night, the forest seemed at peace, the ancient spirits watching silently as the Alpha King and his mate reaffirmed their bond. The visions, the shadows, the omens all faded like mist. The forest returned to normal, though the sense of magic lingered in the air, a reminder that love, courage, and destiny were forces stronger than any curse. Kale looked at Lyra, truly looked, and saw not just his mate, but a partner, equal in spirit, courage, and heart. "You have changed me," Kale said quietly, his hand brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Not through fear, not through power, but through choice, through love, and I am yours in every sense." Lyra smiled, a smile filled with relief, hope, and the quiet strength of someone who had faced darkness and survived.
"And I am yours, Kale."
Yes, always. even when the world tests us, even when shadows rise.
Bay. Always. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of frost and pine, whispering across the forest as if acknowledging their triumph.
The spectral wolf howled once more. Not a warning this time, but a celebration, a herald of the bond that had survived trial and shadow alike. The night stretched on. Calm and serene, Kale and Lyra walked together toward the palace, hand in hand, their footsteps leaving delicate prints in the snow. The pack had gathered at the edge of the forest, silent but attentive, witnessing the return of the Alpha King and his mate as a unified force. Bed. Even the oldest warriors, who had seen centuries of storms and battles, felt a sense of awe at the quiet strength radiating from them. Darian's schemes had failed, but Kale knew better than to underestimate the rival Alpha.
There would be challenges ahead. Fate always tests the courageous.
But for tonight, the bond had triumphed. The Alpha King and his mate had endured the visions, survived the curse, and faced the shadows together. Ira leaned her head against Kale's shoulder as they approached the palace gates. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked softly. Kale tightened his hold on her hand, the warmth of their bond pushing back the chill of the night. "Now," he admitted, "but we are ready. Together we can face whatever comes." Fear may return, shadows may rise, but nothing can break this bond. Nothing. The palace doors opened, welcoming them back with the warmth of home, safety, and the knowledge that the bond of true mates was stronger than any curse, stronger than any rival, stronger than fear itself. And as they entered the halls of their kingdom, the twin moons shone down through the frozen windows, casting silver light on the Alpha King and his mate. Their hearts were scarred, tested, and tempered, but together they had found redemption. Not just for themselves, but for the kingdom that depended on them. The spirits of the forest, the watchers of fate, and the pack itself had witnessed their trial. The lesson was clear. Love forged in courage, tested by darkness, and strengthened by choice could overcome even the most ancient shadows. Desperate, Bael and Lyra stood together, looking out over the snow-covered kingdom, knowing that whatever storms the future held, they would face them side by side. The pack whispered among themselves, admiration and respect mixing with awe. Their leaders were no longer just alpha and mate. They were partners, equal in strength, courage, and heart. The night was quiet, the frost shimmering, and the world seemed at peace for the first time in many seasons. But in the distance, the mountains stirred with unseen forces, hints of challenges yet to come. Kale tightened his grip on Lyra's hand and whispered,
Whatever comes, we face it together.
Always. Lyra smiled, a smile full of hope and the unspoken promise of love and loyalty.
"It's always," she echoed. The twin moons watched over them, silent witnesses to the bond that had survived betrayal, fear, visions, and shadows. And under their light, the Alpha King and his mate stepped into a future forged in ice, fire, and love, ready to face whatever destiny held.